All right, I think we're going. So, what's up, everybody? We're back here for our second video of the Cadence series. This is going to be a introduction to smart contracts. For this video, I don't expect that you know anything about smart contracts. This is sort of the purpose is to introduce it. We're going to get into code a little bit, but I really want to go over what actually is a smart contract and why are we going to be dealing so much with them. So to start off, I know I said I wouldn't do any preparation, but I figured it would be good to get some sort of diagram going to help explain what I'm going to be talking about here. So when you think of a smart contract on the blockchain, I usually like to say to think of a rule book. So think of just a rule book that contains a bunch of rules and a bunch of things in it, and it's just sitting out there, right? It's sitting out there on the blockchain, and there's two main components to it. So when you think of a smart contract, there's two main components. One is state. So this is all the information that will live on the blockchain. So if I have a name field and I call it Jacob, and I set that state, that name field to be Jacob, then that name, Jacob, will forever live on the blockchain in that smart contract. And then the second part is the logic of the smart contract. So these are the actual rules of the smart contract. How do we modify that state? How do we view that state? How can we change that name Jacob to Tucker? What if we wanted to change it to a different name? That's kind of where the logic comes in. So when you actually look at smart contract code, you'll see that it's often divided into these two separate blocks. And so, I guess like when you're thinking of a smart contract, always think of it as being the state and the logic. And so the state can be variables. You know, it can just be like a name. It can be a dictionary. It can be an array, strings, whatever. That's just a state that's being stored on the blockchain. And then the logic can contain structs if you've coded in things like JavaScript, functions, a bunch of other stuff that will actually help us define how to view and how to modify that state on the blockchain. So we're actually going to step into code for a little bit. And I want to do this by pulling up what's called the flow playground. So if you go to for builders and then click on playground, we're actually going to click on the hello world example because as you know, if you're a developer, anytime that you are starting a new language, you usually start with hello world. And we're going to skip all of this text for now. What you're going to do is you're just going to click on this link and go here. So if you want to use this example, just go to that link that I just clicked on. All right. So we currently have a bunch of code here, and it may seem really confusing at first, but we're going to kind of walk through what exactly this means. So while I do this, why don't I get rid of some of the comments here so that it's much more clear what we're actually doing. And I also don't want you to get confused with all these comments because you may not know what these mean yet. So I'm also going to do a little bit of reordering. That way it's a little more clear based on the diagram that I have set over here. So this is a contract, and this is declared using the contract keyword. And so this is what we're going to be doing is we're going to make a contract. And remember that I said that a contract just sits out there on the blockchain. And so we're going to make our first contract that's going to sit out there on the blockchain, but this is all local. And usually when we're doing this sort of local development, we refer to it as like a local emulator. This means that what we're doing right now has no effect on the blockchain at all. It's completely local. It's just affecting us. We can't mint a bunch of NFTs that will make us millionaires, even though, of course, that would be amazing. This is all just local to us specifically. So, or me in this case. So don't worry about any of the syntax for now. I'm going to do a whole separate video on syntax. But we're going to actually deploy, and what deploy means is to, usually you'll see deploy a contract. Deploy means to take our contract and put it out there on the blockchain so that it can sit there and act as sort of that rule book. So we're going to, let's just walk through this quickly. So this is a contract, and this contract is called Hello World. So you can imagine that this smart contract is named Hello World. And remember we said that there's two sort of like separate areas of a contract. There's the state. So this is the state. And we're actually going to mark this with like a little, I like to do this sort of thingy. I think it looks kind of cool. And then down below, this is the logic. So this is the state and this is the logic. So the state, like I said before, is just variables or things that we're going to store on the blockchain, things that we want out there. So we have a greeting, and don't worry about the syntax yet, but we have a greeting, and this is going to be a string. So we want to set this greeting to something initially so that when we put this rulebook out there or this smart contract out there, we actually have an initial value for it. So this is sort of our state, and this is what's stored on the blockchain, and then we have our logic. So this is how to modify or how to view our state. And so we have one simple function here called hello, and what this does is simply returns the greeting. So again, don't worry about the syntax, but all this is doing is returning this state to us. And so if we were to actually, look at this rule book that's out there, the smart contract, and we were to actually call hello on it, it would give us back our greeting state. So whatever currently lives on the blockchain. And then this other function is, what this is doing is just initializing our greeting to say, hello world. So let's take this simple rulebook and let's actually deploy it by clicking this deploy button over here. Let's deploy it. And you'll see in the console here, I'm going to drag this up, it says deployed contract to 0x01. So you may not know what 0x01 is, but essentially what this is called an address. And an address is a whole separate topic that I'll likely do another video on. But on Flow, you can think of contracts are actually deployed, are put inside of an address or an account. So every account on Flow has an address associated with it. So in this case, this is account 0x01. I wonder if I can increase this a little bit so it's easier to see. This is account 0x01. So this means that there's an account out there that has an address 0x01. And so what we essentially just did is we put this contract to this account. And it can be slightly confusing, and we'll do a separate video on that, but this is what this means. Now, let's actually go and see if we can get our greeting from the blockchain. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do something called a script. And there's a lot going on here. So I'm going to delete all of this annoying stuff. And I'm going to change some things around just to make it a lot easier for us. But let's delete all this. And so we just have this. And so this is a script. And all it's doing is looking at that contract that we just deployed to the blockchain. And it's going to call a hello on it. And so what we can actually do here is here. Let me rearrange this for a second. So I also wanted to make the point that I'm doing all of this live because I want this to be a genuine experience. And so I didn't set all this up beforehand, but maybe that's also just an excuse because I'm lazy. And so if we actually just refresh this page, and we change this to 1, okay. So what I just did is I just got rid of a bunch of like boilerplate stuff that was there. And all we're doing is we're importing. So what that really means is we're looking at, right? So if that hello world contract, which is in account 0x01, is sitting there, all we're doing is looking at it. And so we're importing hello world from 0x01. That means we're looking at the hello world contract that's in this account. And we're just going to call the hello function on it. So if we go back to our contract, you'll see that this is just going to return our greeting, and our greeting should be hello world. So let's go back to our script, and let's execute our script, and we will see that in the console we get hello world. And so this is saying that on the blockchain right now, in our local blockchain, there's a contract called hello world that's in this account, 0x01, and it currently has a state called greeting that contains the value hello world. And so there's a bunch of other stuff going on here. You might be wondering what a script even is, what a transaction is. For now, I'll leave it at the fact that a script, all the script does is it reads the blockchain, so it doesn't change anything, it just reads it. And as you just saw, all we did was read that contract. But I'll leave scripts and transactions for another video. So I hope that this gives an intro to what smart contracts even are. And in tutorials in the future, we're going to go into what actually this code really means and how we can make it cooler. So thanks for sticking with me for another video. Hope that was helpful, and that's it for this one. So cool.